All right, let's talk about something that, for just a simple piece of metal, gets people surprisingly fired up: the gold standard. I mean, this is a monetary system most of the world ditched decades ago, and yet it just keeps popping up in conversations about how our economy should work.
And that's really the big question here, isn't it? What is it about this idea that gives it such staying power? Why are people still so passionate about tying our huge, modern digital economies to a shiny yellow rock we dig out of the ground? To figure that out, we've got to start with the absolute basics.
So first things first, what are we even talking about? Well, the gold standard, in its classic sense, is pretty straightforward. Your paper money isn't just paper, it's basically a claim check. The idea was you could literally walk into a bank, hand over your dollars, and get a specific, guaranteed amount of physical gold in return. That direct link, that's the whole point. It's meant to give money a real, tangible anchor.
Okay, so to really get why people are so obsessed, you gotta start where the fight is the loudest: in the public arena. This is that classic, often very passionate debate you see playing out online or on politics.
On one side, you've got the fans of gold. They argue it brings amazing long-term stability. They'll point to history and say, look, over centuries, inflation was basically zero. For them, the real beauty is that it puts handcuffs on the government. You can't just print money out of thin air if you don't have the gold to back it up. But then opponents fire right back. They say the economy grows way faster than we can find new gold, and that forces prices down, a deflationary spiral that can absolutely crush an economy. Plus, they'll show you charts of gold's wild price swings and argue, how can anyone run a business or plan for the future with that kind of volatility?
And then when you step out of the public square and into, say, the world of academic economics, whoa, the tone changes completely. This quote pretty much sums it up. There's a near total consensus among professional economists that for a modern economy, the gold standard is just a terrible idea. So, case closed, right? Well, not so fast.
Because you see, the way the gold standard actually worked in history is a lot more interesting and nuanced than that rigid black and white debate makes it sound. It wasn't some unbreakable chain. It was, well, it was more like a rule that knew when to bend.
And that brings us to this really key historical concept: the contingent rule. This idea completely reframes the whole system. The gold standard's power didn't come from being rigid and unbreakable. It came from this shared promise, this understanding that, hey, if there's a huge emergency, like a massive war, the government can hit the pause button. They can print paper money to get through the crisis. But, and this is the most important part, everyone trusted that once the emergency was over, they'd hit play again and make the money good for gold at the exact same old price.
And this wasn't just some theory, right? It actually happened again and again. During the Napoleonic Wars, Great Britain went off gold for more than 20 years, but they kept their promise and went back. The US did the same thing during the Civil War, printing money called greenbacks. And sure, it took a lot of political fighting, but eventually they also went back to gold at the pre-war price. So this ability to suspend the rule in a crisis, it wasn't a bug in the system. It was a crucial feature.
So we've seen how the old system had this hidden flexibility. But that just raises a bigger, more modern question. Now that our money isn't tied to it, what actually gives gold its value today? Turns out there are at least two really powerful and totally different ways to think about this.
The first theory is really tangible. It's almost primal. It says that the value of gold is a direct reflection of the absolutely immense amount of physical energy it takes to get it out of the ground. It's not valuable just because it's shiny. It's valuable because it represents a massive concentration of real-world work and power.
And we're not talking about some abstract concept. Just picture a massive gold mine. You've got giant trucks burning incredible amounts of diesel. You've got the energy needed to blast and move tons of rock. You have massive amounts of electricity powering the plants that crush and process the ore. All of that, the fuel, the power, the transport, the human labor, all that energy gets baked right into the final cost, and therefore the value of 1 little ounce of gold. It's like a battery storing all that effort.
Okay, so that's the physical theory, but now let's flip the coin completely and look at this from a pure finance angle. This theory says gold's value today has less to do with the energy it took to mine it and everything to do with what other investments are doing, especially interest rates.
Now, to get this, you have to imagine the gold market is split into two camps. First, you have the users. These are people who want gold for stuff, jewelry, electronics, dentistry. They buy it as a physical commodity. But then you have the investors, and they're playing a totally different game. They're drawn to gold for one specific reason. It pays you absolutely nothing. Now, why on earth would you want an asset that has no yield? Well, think about it.
When the interest rates on other super safe assets, like government bonds, fall to near zero, suddenly an asset that pays zero doesn't look so bad anymore.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. Look at this chart. During times of high interest rates, gold's price isn't all that sensitive to small changes in those rates. But look what happens when interest rates are already low. All of a sudden, the price of gold becomes hypersensitive, almost 4 times more reactive to any little nudge downward in rates. So in the kind of low interest rate world we've been living in, gold starts behaving less like a boring metal and more like a high-stakes bet on where interest rates are headed next.
So, we've gone from the simple arguments you hear online to the surprisingly flexible rules of history, and now to these competing modern ideas about what even makes gold valuable. So, where does all of this leave us?
I think the real answer is that gold isn't just one single thing. And maybe that's why this idea refuses to die. Because gold is a shapeshifter. To one person, it's a symbol of discipline and a check on government power. To another, it's a physical battery of stored energy. And to a Wall Street trader, it's a sophisticated financial tool for a world of low interest rates. It's a historical artifact and a modern investment, all at the same time.
And that leaves us with one last big question to chew on. As our entire financial world gets more and more abstract, a world of digital dollars and cryptocurrencies that exist only as code, what is the real, enduring role for a physical constant, an element that's been with humanity for thousands of years? What does this ancient, tangible thing really mean in a world of constant, intangible change? Thanks for watching.